Shut up and sit down.
Welcome back to the channel, guys. So the main purpose of today's video is going to be to show you guys what's under tarp number 1 and some tips and how we do it on making a standalone harness. Now, what's under tarp number 1? There's a hint. But for now, I'm going to pull the tarp off and I'll show you guys what's under there. Wonder no more, guys. What this is, or what this used to be, was a 91 Mazda Miata. And in a bit of a rerun snippet here of the Hoonigans, we're going to turn this thing into a nasty little cart. And as you guys can tell, we're outside. We don't really have a garage, so. But this is the Miata. This is what the 302 is going in, and yeah, it's going to be a fun little project. I look forward to getting this thing ready to go anyway. That's what's under tarp number 1, guys. What's up, guys? Sitting here at the old kitchen table. It's my little workshop here. And we got the harness pulled out of the Lincoln. Trying to convert this thing into a standalone 302 harness for the Miata. And it's one of those things that it's real time consuming and kind of frustrating. But we got it out, so now we're just trying to work our way through all the wire loom, get all the tape off. You know, we got the tools of the trade for that here. Scissors and razor knives and a computer for watching YouTube videos when you're frustrated. The goal is get that 60 pin connector there and have everything converted to a standalone harness that pretty much just runs the engine. We're not looking for any headlights or horn. This is just a dedicated circuit for the engine. And I have these notes that I found on the internet of each pin, and supposedly this is every pin that you need hooked up to make this engine run. And we're kind of going through to figure out what everything is. Make sure we have all the hard shell connectors, and we'll go from there. But we'll see you guys back whenever we get all this wire loom off. What's up, guys? We're back here working on the harness again for the Miata. Today we're going to be working on the O2 sensor harness. So the wire diagram that I found is a very good one, actually. It's from our website called veryuseful.com. It is a Mustang frequently asked questions page, basically. And they have tons of wire diagrams for you guys. If you're looking to do anything 302 related, carbureted or not, there's wire diagrams like crazy on there. So here's a quick view of the diagram that I found. It's very straightforward. It really does show you a good standalone harness. Again, that's veryuseful.com. So the harness that I'm working with came from the 91 Lincoln that you guys have seen. So it's not a Mustang harness. So the wire colors don't match, but a lot of the other stuff does. So the connectors are the same, the 60 pin's the same. You know, our 60 pin being this. Our 60 pin's the same. So we're going to work on cutting out all of the connectors we need. In this harness we have the map sensor connector, we have both O2 sensors, Well, I'm pretty sure that's all we're going to take from this harness that we're working on here. So I've already got the map sensor connector pulled and labeled, so it's just a harness all by itself right now that I'll wire in here in a few. So take a look as we try to do this. So we're going to take this map sensor connector right here, map sensor. I like to make sure I label my stuff very clearly. It always helps later on. It's hard to forget where some of this stuff goes to, but when you're messing with a new harness, a lot of the connectors are the same. A lot of them are the same. And it can be very confusing. So we're going to start with this map sensor connector, and pretty simple. It's got 3 wires coming out of it. The diagram that I showed you shows all of the connectors from the front. So when we look at this one, we have wire number 1 goes to pin 46 on our 60 pin. Wire number 2, the one in the middle, goes to pin 45 on our 60 pin. And wire number 3 goes to pin 26 on our 60 pin. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and label this stuff because I want to get all of my connectors pulled out first before I actually connect them to the harness. It'll make everything a little less cumbersome. You won't have as many wires. So what we'll do is we know that number 1 goes to 46. Okay? So we'll look here. We see it's a black wire with a white stripe. Relatively simple. We will follow that wire all the way to the end, and again that goes to 46. So I've pre-labeled some tape, and so pin 46, I'll wrap this around like a little flagpole. So now there's no mistaking. When they get ready to put this into the harness, this goes to pin 46. Okay, and we'll do the same thing on the other 2 real quick. So the one in the middle is blue with a green stripe. The one in the middle goes to pin 45. My little label for pin 45. And then, last but not least, we have what looks to be gray with a red stripe. And that one goes to pin 26. We'll take pin 26 here and label it. And guys, that's pretty simple. It's about as simple as I can make it. So now we're going to go ahead and grab these O2 sensor connectors. So I'll wrap this up. We'll just set it over here out of the way for now. Just out of the way. So this is the harness, okay? I don't know how well you guys can see this, but this is the harness, alright? And this harness has a lot of things in it. It's got the power steering pump wire that tells it to rev slightly. It's got a few other connectors, but the main 2 that we're concerned about here is the 2 that go to the O2 sensor. Okay? And if you look, this connector is broken, but they're the same connector. Okay? The only difference is the wire colors coming out of them. Now, this harness, before I pulled it out of the car, since these 2 are the same connector, and I knew that it mattered, I went ahead and labeled them. Actually, my son labeled them. It's always fun when you get your kids involved. So this one is labeled left-hand O2, or driver's side. This one is labeled right-hand O2, or passenger side. So we're going to follow these wires back, and we're going to cut as much wire as we can keep, because our goal later on will be to shorten the harness down when it's in the car to make it have a nice tight fit to the unit. But for now, since we don't know how much or how little we need, we'll take as much wire as we can, and then we can cut it down later. So what we're going to do, again, we're going to follow these back. You'll see that in this harness, both power wires connect into one, both ground wires connect into one, and then you have your two signals. So we will pull this back. Looks like our ground goes to here. So we don't get a whole lot of length on that, but we'll cut this one here. Looks like our power or ignition goes to this one. So we will cut this one here. And then both of our signal wires go to this same connector, so we will cut these together here. Okay. So now, do you see how this is starting to become a little simpler? We've taken this big mess of wires, we've removed our map sensor, and now we have both of our O2 sensors. And then I'll do the same thing with these. I'll write on my tape which pin these go to, and I will flag the wires and we'll be good to go. So I'll catch you guys back here in a few when I have more of these connectors made, and we can start actually working on wiring them into the harness. What's up, guys? It's the next day. It's actually pretty late, so I didn't get to start on this too late, but I've got the entire fuel injector harness ready to be wired into the main harness. I installed new fuel injector connectors. The ones that were on there had several things wrong with them. One is this. I don't know if you can really see, but all the wires were kind of chewed up. Looked like maybe a rat had gotten in there or something. And on removal, a lot of them, the clips broke. It's got these clips you pry up on the sides. So, just some cheap replacements. I bought these on eBay. They're spring clips, so they're much easier to remove. But all the wires are labeled for the pins that go to, and hopefully tomorrow's video will be putting these into the main harness. I did remove the salt and pepper shakers, if you guys are familiar with these harnesses. It's these gigantic plugs that take up a ton of space for no reason. So those will get removed and make the harness a little cleaner. But yep, I'll see you guys shortly. Alright guys, back here again working on the harness for the Miata. I got my little helper.
Hey.
So what are we doing?
How y'all viewers doing? Good? Okay. So, we're sorry, but we're going to be throwing the trash away of the harness. And, yeah. So, that's all the trash we're going to be throwing away.
So if you guys can't tell, there's I'd say a good third of this little trash can here is pretty much full of old harness wires. And
it's true.
It is true. And this just goes to show you how much crap you don't need. Now there's also a lot of convoluted tubing and tape and wire loom, stuff like that in that trash can as well. But either way, this is all trash, and we're going to set this to the side. Here is the harness with all the connectors cut off of it. There's several sections of wiring down there. And we're going to label all this and try to get some of it put together tonight with the fuel injector harness and the O2 sensor harness.
And don't forget, Happy Valentine's Day. Hope you have a great night.
What's up, guys? So here, still working on the harness. We're getting there. We're almost done. So I decided to go with these crimped butt connectors. They, in my opinion, they're easier. So I couldn't find any heat shrink locally, so I'm just going to tape these up. It'll be fine. All the exposed wires are all the way inside the crimps anyway, so no worries there. I'm going to show you all one of these crimps. There's several in this harness. I'm going to do one of these here, and then you guys can get the understanding for the rest. So again, these are still marked just in case something comes loose. So I wrapped these together as if they were going to be a solder joint. Based on the solder of the fuel injector clips, I decided not to do that. Either my soldering iron, the solder, or this wire, it just didn't want to take the solder. So I'm going to pull this solder joint apart. When it comes to these, you don't need a whole lot of wire, so you only want to go about halfway into this. So you can kind of line it up and say, okay, the sheath needs to stop at the inside of this little bubble. So right about there, and it gives you a good idea of where to cut it. So I'll use my crimps, cut it here, say okay. And that's really all you need. That's about all you need. No need for any more than that. So we'll take our crimp or our butt connector, we'll slide it over. Make sure when you do this, you see the little metal sleeve in there. The wire should go inside the sleeve, and it should go all the way to the sheath. Again, the sheathing is the outside of the wire here. I like to hold it down to make sure it doesn't come off. Use the crimp that fits. You want to get all the way as far to the edge here as you can. Make sure everything's butted and crimp. So you have this nice and snug, not going anywhere. You have the other side of this wire. We're going to cut it as well, so we'll do that. Now, this one's a little longer. It's okay. It's going to work just fine. No issues. We'll slide. Well, what I like to do is I'll take my crimps and I will go ahead and put this in here, and I will slide it to the edge, and I'll hold it with the crimps. Now you're not really applying much force, you're just holding it. So that way you can take your wire, slide your wire in all the way, and crimp. Just like that. No problem. You got your crimps, everything looks good, nice and snug. I'm using cheap Hyper Tough is what I'm using. This Hyper Tough 22 to 16 gauge. It is important to make sure you get the correct gauge. I'm a fan of electrical tape. It's inexpensive. This roll was 88 cents. It's Duck brand. It's auto electrical tape. So what I like to do, pull off a length a little longer than the crimp itself, cut it, and I'll just wrap it. So like this here, and just kind of wrap it smoothly around. And then with your edges, just pull them snug and twist them. And all this is for, there's going to be some dust protection. Now all this whole bundle here, once it's all crimped together, I will flatten it out. I'm going to leave these on. Later on, if we have to take it apart for any reason, these will still be there. Even if some of them pull off, some of them will still be there. It'll be easier to know which one's which. But all of this will get taped probably from about here to just past here, and this will be one solid piece. So that's how I do that.